Head Speed Tour, finally in my hands. I want to thank Tennis Warehouse Europe for sending me this frame. You can use my affiliate link to support this channel, and yeah, thanks to you. Thanks to all the subscribers, I can grow, I can make more videos, more comparisons, more reviews, and test more rackets. So this racket, I can say right away, it is a very special racket for me, for my game and for my swing style, and it can cover so many grounds. I can review this racket with so many different angles. One could be why had released a 97 inches speed, where the speed in general is for modern game. We all know smaller head sizes are going back to shadows, so this is their attempt to what? To modernize the classic frames, maybe, to replace the Prestige line and let the Prestige users find their new home, maybe. Who is the racket for? In my opinion, it is for the players who guide the ball. If you have the intention to guide the ball, to follow through, and if you are really looking for this type of racket that is very honest with your swing, with your follow through, this racket is for you. I wrote down all the rackets that Speed Tour has something in common with. That would be Speed Pro, Prestige Tour, Blade, TF40, T-Fight 305S, Percept 97D, Percept 97, Vicor 95, maybe Gravity Tour. So a lot of grounds to cover. I'll focus on maybe the most important rackets, most similar rackets in feel, performance, swing style. I was a Prestige user for quite some time. I also used 95 inches head size for many years, so I am the target group of players. So from my perspective, I am classically developed player. I want to be a more modern player, and I'm looking for this balance between classic feel, classic response, classic predictability, and modern power, modern access to spin, forgiveness. If the racket can give me both, that would be my racket of choice. Maybe it's impossible. Maybe you have to choose your path, your way, how you want to play. With classic frames, I feel like guiding the ball is like butter. Like the wave distribution itself is just allowing you to loop the racket and allow the racket to do its job. You extend through the ball more naturally, you don't have to force anything. With modern frames, they tend to be more whippy, or maybe you have to close the racket more rapidly to import some spin, because the power is a bit higher, the response is a bit hotter. So if you don't have this more aggressive acceleration, importing spin, you can lose the ball, hit out, and then you start importing spin, but it's not your natural game. So maybe you lose the ball to the net, you try to overcorrect, and after a while you just lose the idea how you want to play. Do you want to play more conservative because you are pushing the ball out, or maybe you want to be more aggressive, catch on the rise because you got more forgiveness, but then you are maybe too aggressive where your game is more on the baseline, you know. So there is a lot of things that play a role in your final experience with the racket. Speed Tour, I think this is maybe the best option or best take of a classic racket in modern days. I was thinking like which racket is the closest to Speed Tour, and I would say Prestige Tour is the closest in feel and response. Prestige Tour is a 95 inches head size racket. This one 97, so slightly more forgiving, slightly easier to use because Prestige Tour is a bit heavier. This one has a thicker beam, so you get maybe a bit more stability, a bit more juice, a bit more forgiveness. Spin potential quite similar. It is not a spin-friendly racket, but the access to spin is there. If you, yeah, it's within the range of the rackets I mentioned. Let's go to the speed line. For example, Speed Pro. It is a modern take of a classic racket, but maybe head went a bit too far. Like sometimes when I'm accelerating, I'm getting more power than spin. If I take down the acceleration, the racket becomes a bit anemic, so it's not like I can stick to the baseline and play cold tennis. I have to be engaged with the Speed Pro, so why I am even taking a bigger head size if it's not really helping me. It is a great racket, but definitely it takes a bit more commitment from the player. You can say Prestige Pro, Prestige Tour is even colder in response. Yeah, maybe, but in the way how the wave distribution works and how you can guide the ball, extend with the ball, you can push the ball towards your target and keep playing like this the whole match. You can find the rhythm thanks to wave distribution. It's just easier to place the ball inside the court over and over again. Of course, it is a bit challenging to play with the Prestige Tour, Prestige Pro. On defense, you have to be a bit more engaged, shifting from defense to offense, but on the neutral shots, it is a golden racket. Speed Tour, it is acting quite similarly. You can stay cold and stick to the baseline forever. You can guide the ball. I added a leather grip to my Speed Tour and I think it is now a more complete package. Without a leather grip, I would say it was closer to Blade or TF40 rackets, similar levels of control and predictability, but the wave distribution was kind of missing something. I was missing this classic guidance, I would say. Also, a slightly head-heavy balance with a thicker beam was maybe irritating my wrist a little bit. Adding a leather grip, yeah, just made the whole package more complete, in line with my vision how I want to play with a classic racket, which this racket still is. So in comparison to Percept 97, Percept 97D, I think this one is a bit more consistent. Maybe one thing that Prestige users might not like with the Speed Tour is the comfort. I mean, it is in feel more similar to Prestige Tour, so Prestige Tour itself, it is one of the maybe stiffest rackets within the Prestige line, so this one probably is the stiffest within the Speed line. So yeah, but you get the predictability, you get the laser-like control, point and shoot, but the pocketing sensation, dwell time is still quite good, on the same level that Prestige Tour was offering me. One thing that I noticed, which is kind of strange, is when I'm gliding my hand across the neck of the racket, I feel the small gap over here. It feels like a two-piece racket where the two pieces are somehow attached to each other. When I'm holding my racket in a neutral position, I sometimes feel this little harshness. For example, Gravity Tour is also kinda modern take for classically developed players. This one is shooting a bit higher above the net, but access to spin is a bit better. You can kinda hit your classic strokes with the Gravity Tour, but the spin and height above the net will be much higher. So you might be a little bit surprised. If you are coming from a Prestige racket, Gravity Tour could be like, oh, whoa, what was that? I wasn't expecting it. And yeah, with Gravity Tour you have to adjust, like calibrate your brain. Like if you want to hit through the ball will launch a bit higher, so you have to be expecting it and then accept it as something normal, because this racket is meant to play a bit higher above the net. So don't adjust the strokes, you have to accept the higher launch angle. With this one, yeah, it's completely in line with your acceleration, with how you guide the ball. So in a way, a modern takes, but totally different types of response. This one, despite the slightly head heavier balance point, was irritating my wrist less. So yeah, maybe beam thickness plays a role here. And now probably the most exciting comparison, Speed Tour versus E-Zone. E-Zone is also for these classically developed players who want to play through the court, they want predictable response, lower maybe above the net, not so loopy strokes, more through the ball. And yeah, E-Zone is definitely a hotter in response racket. So if I make a small mistake with my angle of racket on contact point, the ball sails. And with Speed Tour, it's still inside the court. So maybe these two might go to final round. I am looking for a new racket. I am contemplating if I need a more classic racket or maybe more modern racket, but I wanna stay inside the classic type of response. Gravity Tour being probably my limit of what I can take, because when I'm competing I don't want to think too much if the ball will launch on me or not. I want to trust my strokes, I want to feel the swing, and then I can play forever. I am a type of player who never misses. So if I find a racket that can provide me that level of predictability, it is going to be my racket of choice. But I want to risk a little bit. I want to find some of aggressiveness. That's the tricky point, how far I can go before I lose everything. In conclusion, Speed Tour is an amazing racket. It brings back my belief that it is possible to make a modern racket with classic response. This racket makes me wanna try again 95 inches racket, maybe Vikor 95. Yeah, Speed Tour, great racket. See you soon.